Good evening, gentlemen. I think I've been absent for about 4 days and couldn't talk to you all. But there have been very momentous developments now. And I think the Western military specialists, the so-called generals who had such a lot of experience, have been proved wrong. That is, I'm talking about the Ukraine war between Russia and Ukraine. There were a lot of forecasts. I remember reading one of the retired generals of the US Army stating that the days of Putin are getting over. The Russian army is going to be defeated and it's going to be thrown back. And I had, if you remember, in my earlier videos said that Russia will not be defeated and they will do something which will bring them into the forefront. And that has happened. First of all, the Ukrainians did something very silly. Their special forces went and they blew up a bridge that joins the Crimea with Russia. That was a terrorist act. And it was not going to go unpunished. And the Russians have taken advantage of it. They have started a massive retaliatory bombardment of Ukraine by the rockets, missiles and drones. The crucial thing is the drones, which have been supplied by Iran. Now, I honestly have been a little surprised that Iran has that sort of technology to make drones which can have such a devastating effect. But that's a fact. They have also got the kamikaze drone. You know what kamikaze means? It was a divine wind which came and saved Japan. And during World War II, the Japanese suicide pilots were known as the kamikaze, who took the aircraft and hit the American ships and sank them. Of course, they were not successful. But in this case, the kamikaze drones have been very successful. And coupled with that, the Russians have mounted an offensive as well. And as per my latest reports, whatever area had been taken back in Kharkiv, around Kharkiv by the Ukrainian army, a significant portion has been taken back. And there's bitter fighting going on even in the southern Donbass region, and the Russians are leading. They are making big forays. One thing here we must remember, that Vladimir Putin did not put his heart and soul in the battle. Now, I would like to tell the Americans that Putin didn't want to destroy Ukraine. He just wanted his security angle to be respected. Can anyone tell me why Ukraine, the Russian Air Force, despite having complete air superiority, never bombed the railway stations, the railroads, which are the infrastructure of Ukraine? They didn't do it. Because they were looking for a peaceful solution. They thought Ukraine will come down on its knees. But that was a very fallacious thinking, because the Americans were going to bolster Ukraine with weapons, and the fight went out of hand. And initially the Russians had left out the Ukrainian cities. They were not bombing, but they've started now. Missile attacks and the drone attacks is like fire from the skies. That's what the Bible says, the black angel. That's what's happened. I don't think how Russia can lose, because the Americans now are on a very sticky wicket. The latest news I have from America is that Tulsi Gabbard, the senator of the Democratic Party, has resigned. She says Biden is leading America to doom. There are many more. Donald Trump goes around articulating the same thing. And the American public is bearing the brunt of the cost of this war. Billions of dollars being pumped in by Joe Biden into Ukraine. And who's paying for it? It's the American public, the American people. Yet there are a few American hawks who feel it's a good thing, keep fighting. But that keep fighting is not good enough. Now, Iran has denied they have given any drones, but they have. There's no doubt about it. And the Western powers are saying we're going to have sanctions on Iran. Sanctions have been there on Iran for the last 20 years, What has come about them? Nothing. And now Iran is on the threshold of a nuclear device. And once they have that, God forbid the Americans, because the Iranians have got a lot of axe to grind against the Americans, a lot of big axe. Well, coming to the battle, I think the Ukrainians now on a sticky wicket. They're falling back. Their cities have been hit. Their power stations are hit. There's darkness in almost all the cities. Kyiv has been having mysterious explosions. There's nothing mysterious about them. They are the Russian rockets and the Iranian drones which are playing havoc. Now they've asked for so many defensive measures. See, defense is not always successful. As Clausewitz said, offense is the best form of defense. And if the Ukrainians try offense, it's going to be a double whammy for them. Russia will then swamp them. Because one thing is very clear, the Americans are not interested in physically coming into combat in Ukraine. Neither are they interested or have the capability to enforce a no-fly zone over Ukraine. This is Ukraine, not Iraq. There's no opposition there. Here you'll have to counter with the Russians, and the next result would be Armageddon, the last war between good and evil, and it'll be the Western world which will be facing it. I think Biden must by now have realized that what he's done is a pretty silly thing in trying to bolster Ukraine. This war could have been over in 5 minutes, but for the Americans. I've gone into so many programs from American specialists on warfare and military history. John Mishmer is one of them, and they have all said that the war was instigated by the Americans in the hope that they will be able to bring Russia on its knees. By a boomerang. You know what's a boomerang? The Australian Aborigines use it. It's a weapon that comes and hits you back. And this is precisely what has happened. The Americans do not know what to do now. And I think Biden is at his wit's end. If he escalates, it's going to be Armageddon. And if he doesn't, Ukraine is going to lose. So it's a Hobson choice for him. While Putin has gathered his wits around him, and despite all the propaganda made out by the Western columnists, commentators, generals, that Putin has lost the war, I maintain nothing of that sort has happened. And Putin is well on the path to what he wanted to achieve. But there's no doubt about it. There's a war which has dragged into 7 months should have been over inside 20 days. And Putin failed the opportunity, or rather say missed the opportunity in the early stages of the war. At that time, had he used the same tactics which he's using now, it would have been all over for Ukraine. It would have been bye-bye and goodbye. Well, gentlemen, the war is in a very interesting stage now. And we'll have to see and wait what Joe Biden and the Anglo-Saxons decide. Because I think Europe has finally realized that they are on a losing wicket. They're going to have a very bleak winter. And there's agitations all over. Look at France, big agitation to leave NATO. In Italy, there's a right-wing government which has come in. Everywhere it's a negative approach. We'll have to see what happens. Germany is the only country standing out against the Russians. They did the same thing in 1941 when Hitler attacked Russia and paid for it with his life and the destruction of Germany. I hope the Germans don't do anything silly and foolish now. They are not a nuclear power, and they better not try and antagonize the bear. Still, there is hope for mankind if Joe Biden and the Anglo-Saxons really wish it. But there are hawks in these governments who want the battle to continue. And we have a man like Mr. Zelensky who's been talking all BS. That's all I will use a word for him. He is not knowing what to do. He's got no policy of his own. He's like the puppet in the hands of the Americans. And when Joe Biden pulls the strings, this gentleman keeps hopping up and down. There can be no peace with Zelensky, and I think he'll have to be removed. Let's wait and see what happens. And I hope Armageddon, the last war between good and evil, doesn't take place. I close now, gentlemen. Wish you all the best, and I hope everything goes fine for you all. Well, I've come out here in a shopping complex, parked my car here, and one of my friends is inside. She's buying some clothes. And I thought, why not make this short video here? Gentlemen, please subscribe to this video, watch it as well, and I'll close now and say to you, Jai Hind.